Hello, lovely. This is Into the Hen House, a podcast for moms with littles. We are joining our voices to a revolution of remembrance. And as mothers, we are rising together and choosing to live, birth, and mother from a place of internally sourced power and deep connection. Join us on this journey as we dive into topics of mindful and intuitive living and mothering, healthy and sovereign living, as well as the often taboo topic of birth trauma, both healing and preventing it. We are your hosts, Andrea,
Caitlin,
and Chantal.
And if you're ready, it's time to jump into the hen house. Hello, welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited for today's conversation and today's guest. This is Dr. Haley Turpin, and she is a chiropractor who is leaning into curiosity. She's about to open up her own business and really exploring what it looks like to serve, what it looks like to work with other providers, what it looks like to support people on their journey and in their evolution, and also really leaning into, what does it look like to be a woman and prioritize life and prioritize everything that's kind of going on and everything that's important, and kind of leaning into all these various aspects of self and of life. And Haley, I'm so happy that you are here today.
I am so happy to be here with y'all and reconnecting. And I know we were chatting a little bit before starting the button here, but getting a group of women together to share openly is always just playful and fun.
Yeah. It definitely is. Yeah. And I know we were talking about a mentor that Caitlin and I shared, and you have learned about kind of as well, though maybe didn't work with her directly, but Dr. Susan Rossi, who is also a chiropractor. But she would talk about when you put women together, the energy spirals and it grows and it expands. And it's just, and that's a lot of what this podcast is also about, is that collective expansion when we come together and are supportive and engaged and honest and all of that. So I love that you brought that up.
Well, the title Hen House, I can visualize the hens coming together. And I'm sure you've shared this before. Is there a correlation with the title being the Hen House and what you just shared?
So this is how the name came to be. It's kind of for a couple different reasons. But I had a patient who became a really good friend, and her son, when we would get talking and we would just like talk, and he's like, oh my goodness, you like people, you just talk so much. And he's like, Dr. Andrea, get out of the hen house.
That's amazing.
And so that's kind of where the name kind of came from. And then I just thought, and then there's also like all of these moms who are saying, you know what, like enough with the city. We want to like move to the country and get chickens. And and so it's kind of also like a little bit of like a playful tie-in with that. But mostly this one little patient who is like, get out of the hen house. You all are talking too much.
Amazing.
So that's kind of where the name came from. But yeah, hens do that,
That's right. It sounds like a full permission just for us to chit chat as we continue forward. And I am here for that.
Yeah.
I feel like the hen house also has chaos, which makes me laugh. Like in that, I say that as I'm, in and out of the camera, because my toddler is climbing up the baby gate and screaming, "Put me down!" And I'm like, yeah, that like within that hen house, there is that like you're everywhere, you're here, you're there, and I do really look forward to our conversation with you today, Haley, and just that reconnection of I'm going to call it 3 life university generations, even though as women, we are all really more or less of the same generation. But we were talking about this just before we got going, that as Dr. Andrea was just leaving Life University, I was just coming in. And then as I was going out, Haley, you yourself were coming in. So it's fun to have shared experiences, even though they weren't shared together.
Yeah.
Yeah. With all over slightly different time spans. But I do think it's fun how we've all met.
Yeah.
Too, that we all have met at different points in time and in different ways. I think that's really kind of fun, because there was no like specific, like it was kind of random how we all met in its own way. So
Yeah, I agree. How did the two of you meet? I didn't ask that.
So I, before starting chiropractic school, was a server at a restaurant here in Winnipeg. Andrea herself is from just out of the city that I live in. And I had served a table of guys who all worked at the same chiropractic clinic here in the city. And one of them was on his way to graduating from Life University, moving back here. And I had told them like, oh, I've already applied. Like I'm starting Life University whenever it was, right? And he was friends with Andrea and informed her.
We started the program together.
He informed her, hey, my friend from Winnipeg's coming. I need you to show her around.
Well, I think what he said was, I told her that she can stay with you, that she'll pick you up from the airport, and that you'll show her apartment. How does that sound? I was like,
sure enough,
fine. Can I have a picture of this girl so I actually get the right person?
So sure enough, she showed up at the airport, picked me up. I stayed with her. She had a list ready of like the 12 best apartments she would consider living in, where she wouldn't consider living. She took me to all the places. She helped me like write out the pros and cons. We got me an apartment. 2 weeks later, I moved into the building next to her basically. And here we are.
Wow, that is so cool. Thank y'all for sharing that.
And how did you guys meet?
Well, that was actually through my roommate, all these living situations. Fiona has been knowing Dr. Andrea, and I don't know how you and Fiona are. I don't remember how you and Fiona met.
We met. So I met Fiona because my husband met Zach. Because Zach, who was Fiona's boyfriend at the time, I don't know, they might be married now or on their way to that. Are they?
Yeah.
But at the time, he was running around campus with an EMF detector and like this and that. And my husband is like, who is this guy and what is he doing? Like, I need to know. And so he's like, okay, I love what you're up to. And so then they became friends. And actually, when we moved into our new house, he had called Zach and was like, what are you doing? Can you bring your EMF detector and tell me if I can move into this house?
Oh, that's so funny.
And then I met Fiona kind of through their connection.
Yeah.
So Zach and Fiona also both trained KTC.
Correct.
I do remember them being there when I was still at Life. Yeah. And then you came in. Oh, wow.
Yeah, those two were such a blessing in my life. I truly feel honored to, and I lived with them during 2020. So there was a lot of really great, leaning into the principal during that time, questioning things, having great conversations. And of course, the knowledge between the two of those were just endless to be able to sit around the kitchen table and chat. But Andrea, I remember specifically, was so eager to pour into us as students. And anytime we wanted to get in person and just ask Andrea questions, not just about chiropractic, but about life and where you were at the time, I remember it was always an open door. And it still continues to be that way.
If you want a slightly more honest perspective of what it looks like to open a chiropractic office with zero budget, and not the what you tend to get in school of like, oh, it's going to be so easy, and within a year you'll be a multi-millionaire, and your debt will be all paid off. And I'm like, well, that's not necessarily true for everyone. So.
You mean we don't all just have like a secret fund stashed away to open $100,000 practice on graduation?
But that's funny.
Haley, what you described about Andrea's open door, eager to pour in, I love hearing that because that is also my experience with you, Andrea. You're so loving and so welcoming and so ready to share your knowledge and experiences. And
thank you.
It's nice how you brought us all together.
Yeah, and you know what? I've been poured into so much from people as well. Like, there's just been people who I'm going like, like even with Susan Rossi, it's like I would have a question and I would just like keep showing up at her office week after week. And I was like, eventually one of these weeks, there's not going to be anyone else in there but me. And I'm going to get to ask her all my questions. And she's going to sit with me and tell me everything and explain it. And like make everything better. And I was like, it's like so far outside of her job description. And but like that woman poured into me, and there was a bunch of other people who poured into me as well. And like even how I ended up going to chiropractic school was there was a female chiropractor in Winnipeg who changed my life and like just gave me my life back. And I was like, oh my goodness, like there is hope for me again. And she was like, you need to be a chiropractor. She paid for my entire trip to go to Atlanta to see the school. She arranged the tour. She arranged a hotel for me. She sent me with actually her brother and his wife and their little girl because she's like, they're going to be there and you may not want to go by yourself. But my other little cousin is going at the same time because she's also going to school. So you all can go together. And she's like, I already cleared it with your mom.
Can we ask who this amazing woman is?
Yeah, so this was, and ironically, this is Dr. Brigitte Rossi's cousin, Dr. Janelle Bohemier.
Yeah. I had a sneaky suspicion when you're listing all the family members in school. I'm like, there's only 1 or 2 families here who have that many chiropractors.
Yeah. Yeah, and so she had arranged everything. Like she paid my whole trip, and I was like, my goodness, like what did I ever do to deserve like someone who's like, you know what, like you need to do this. And
Well,
so I'm like, but I love that.
Yeah, something I would love to point out about it, because we tapped on it in the introduction, is the curiosity you had when engaging with the conversation. I feel like people who are super passionate and they're looking to pour into young minds and students, wherever they may be on their journey, you were there. You were like, I just can't wait to talk to her. I can't wait to have more space. And you're like, I am going to run with this and pour into it. And that's where going into opening a practice, I am trying to embody that so much, even as an owner. And I know I was always taught, well, show up with confidence and clarity and own the room and you're the leader in the pack. And I'm like, that is a lot of pressure. Whereas in my networking, I show up and I meet with these other professionals in the area, whether it's pelvic floor PT, psychiatrists, like other people who are serving the same community as me. And I've got my research ready and I have topics I'm excited to share depending on where the conversation goes. But at the end of the day, I met with a woman who's been in her field for close to 20 years, and she now has an entire institute. And this woman just poured knowledge out. And I sat back, I tucked my little research away, and I was like, I am here. I am here just to learn. And knowing what it looks like for us to work together, and that curiosity, I think, is so attractive for professionals wanting to pour into a younger generation.
I think it's also more real. Like Haley, you touched on, and I feel like I got the same memo through chiropractic school. Like, put on your dress clothes, dress like the doctor, show up like the doctor, have the confidence of the doctor. I have to take someone to the potty. I'll be right back. Come on, let's go. Let's go.
Real life.
Yeah, real life.
But would you say that, I mean, with what we were just describing, like, did you feel in reflection that you were in that state, like just in an open mind, I want to learn mentality? Was there something you were eager for or searching for during that time? Like, where would you say your mindset was in that season of life?
Like when I first started chiropractic school, or is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, like going back to your experience of like, I am so eager to get alone time with this woman and to be able to ask her more questions. Like, where was that drive and that curiosity coming from? What was it rooted in?
I mean, in general, I'm a pretty curious person. And I enjoy hearing a lot of different perspectives. And even in chiropractic school, like I dabbled in so many different techniques and took so many different seminars. Like it was kind of like try all the ice cream flavors before I find what I like, kind of thing. I was like, because I'm like, I want to make sure I get to have a sample of everything, because there's wisdom in so many different places. Like, if you're willing to hear it and look for it, like, you never know who will teach you something. And I was very curious. So with Dr. Susan Rossi, she had these really amazing perspectives, and was sharing things that I had never really heard shared before. And so, and then I was having all these new experiences in my life, and it was kind of like this curiosity of just like wanting to know everything. And so yeah. So I mean, it was like anything she was teaching, I was like, yes, I'm there, and
Have you always been that way? I'm interested. Like, when you reflect back before chiropractic school, have you always been that curious, or has it been something you intentionally stepped into?
I don't know when I was super, super little, but I could tell you in high school, I came from a very, how to say it? It was a town that didn't have a lot of variety as far as people go. Is that fair to say, Caitlin? How do I say that?
It has changed, but yes, definitely was lacking diversity.
Yes, that's the word. Thank you. Lacking diversity. And so anytime there was something that was like more diverse, like my closest friend in high school, she had just moved from the Philippines. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I'm like, tell me everything, feed me everything. Like, I want to know everything. and so I was kind of that person, where it was like, oh, this is something different. And then even when I got to Atlanta, I was like mind blown. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so many different kinds of foods. I was like, yes. I'm like, take me there. What are the weirdest things I can eat?
Yes, that's
I'm
amazing.
like, yes, I want all of it. I'm like, where can I travel? Who do I know, and who's going to take me to travel with them? So
that is so great.
I'm like, I want to see everything.
I feel like that energy you just described is where I have found my most open experiences, or the doors that really brought me into an entirely different reality when I wasn't exactly looking for it, but that curiosity, and I hear playfulness in it. Like, there's like, I just want to experience it. Because it's different. Anytime I've ever followed that sensation with no expectation on like what I was getting from the experience, that's when reality just kept changing. And it was like, oh, chiropractic came into my life from that. I was just like, what is this? What is this? So yeah, it's just really cool to hear you walk through that at such a young age and your awareness around it too.
Yeah. I enjoy new experiences.
Haley, I feel like
yeah.
like that's where the magic happens, in that place of no expectation and curiosity and wonder and just questions. It segues perfectly back around. We were talking about like the story that we're told through chiropractic school of how to show up as the doctor, and I officially just opened my I'm going to call it my first practice. I guess technically it's my second practice. The first one never saw people in its doors, but that's a different story for a different time. But I just opened with another mom chiropractor on April 7th. So we're just a little over 2 months in. And while yes, we both have expertise chiropractically, I feel like we showed up so honestly with so much, I don't know how this goes. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how to do this. And we're just going to keep asking questions and finding different people to ask the questions to and figuring it out as we go. And let me tell you, like, the success and the outpouring and the trust that we've received from the community so far is like mind-blowingly incredible. The community we decided to open in has shown up in a way that we did not expect to happen. so fast and so organically. And, you know, tying into our Hen House podcast, we're two moms who are also chiropractors. And I think we would both emphasize in that way. We're not two chiropractors who are also moms. And the people that we attract, the people we work with, our office is almost always full of moms and littles. We have a jungle gym in our practice, okay? People would probably advise against this because there's probably some liability issues if someone were to fall. But like, we have a jungle gym in our practice. It is always hustle and bustle. It is probably not the place that you want to go if you're like, I want the quick 30 seconds in, 30 seconds out. We're going to chat. We're going to talk about what's real in your life right now. And everyone's going to hear it. And it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And I couldn't imagine it looking any differently. But if you had asked me it's been 10 years since I started chiropractic school, more than 10 years since I started chiropractic school. If you had asked me then what I thought my dream practice would have looked like, there is 0 out of 10 chance I could have described this.
Yeah. Wow.
So I think that curiosity and that wonder and that openness to new information, because I think that you can be curious about others, but still be set in your own ways and not actually interested in doing anything with new information you receive. But I think when you're open to things looking different for you yourself, magic unfolds and you'll find yourself having more joy and more love and more connection than you maybe could have dreamed possible.
Yeah. And I think this is where business is headed for moms. It's like we're
connection driven,
like, but we're going somewhere that maybe hasn't existed so much before. It's like we're building these unicorn businesses where, you know, where it's like, yes, you get to provide for yourselves and yes, you get to share your gifts and all of that, but you get to do it in a way that supports all of life, where you still get to be with your kids, where you're not leaving them at 7 a.m. at the daycare and getting home like at 8:30 or 9:30 right before, like in the final like 2 minutes before they go to bed. You know what I mean? Like, like we're creating something different. And I think that there's a lot of women right now, whether they're saying, I want kids, how do I make my life so that it's going to work so I can have both? But not like in a way that's burned out, in a way that honors me, in a way that honors my family, in a way that honors also my gifts and my expertise and my all of that, right? So
And
I'm excited about that.
yeah. And how many women in the community are just naturally drawn because the chiropractors as leaders and providing that space, they're already living that reality. And then it gives full permission to moms to come in and just be immersed in it. And yes, receive the adjustment. Yes, connect with chiropractors and other practice members, but then also who they are when they go back into the world, making their decisions around their career or their partnership, whatever it may be, might be with a different perspective of what's possible because they've seen you running your office in that possibility. And it can change other fields completely.
Yes. Right? Because I think so much of what we imagine is based on what we've seen. Because oftentimes, if we haven't seen it done before, it's not in our stream of consciousness. It's not something we can necessarily just pull out of thin air. And so I think it is really neat to be able to provide that living proof of what's possible.
Yeah. I love that. Let's take a small direction change because this has been really fun though. We weren't planning this whole first part. So the going with the flow that we recorded for the last episode is kind of continuing.
Maybe it'll become a theme for us.
Maybe it's a theme. I don't know. But so someone had told me recently, okay, it was like so shocking. And I was like, honestly, really rude. But she had said, she's like, your profession, your career, it's like you're really wasting your time. Like you should be doing other things. And like there's other ways, like people shouldn't have to pay basically was her big thing. Like, you should be able to achieve all the wellness you want without ever having to pay. And children shouldn't need this and all of that. And I'm going, whatever, like, you're entitled to your opinion. And kind of rude because you know that I'm a pediatric chiropractor, but okay. But I think people get so confused about kids and chiropractic. And I would love to hear from both of you what like is your most favorite story of like a change that a family experienced or a child experienced or like a mother experienced in like through chiropractic, because I think people just get confused and think it's just your little fix for adult pains and stuff like that, but it's like ultimately it's so much more than that. And like the philosophy and all of that, like it's really about connecting to yourself, connecting to your God, or however you perceive that, connecting to others, connecting to nature, connecting to all of the potential within you, connecting to like it's like to me it's so much about connection and just like tapping into your potential and seeing where you can go with it. And so I'm just curious, like what have been kind of like the best stories like that you would tell everyone and go like, oh my goodness, like this is so amazing.
I feel like it's so hard to pick just one.
Yep.
So I'll share one that just happens to be the most recent. Not that it's necessarily the favorite. We, in our new space, one of our first people we started seeing was a little girl who is fairly far along the spectrum with her autism diagnosis. It took a long time for her to be diagnosed, but just for like a visual, some context, she is verbal. However, her verbal skills were quite diminished. She doesn't necessarily talk just like we are talking in conversation. She'll talk through singing. And if she is engaged with, she will respond, but without eye contact, and she won't start conversation, right? She won't initiate. And her mom came in just last week and said, like, you're never going to believe this. I feel like we haven't been sharing all the little changes we see because there's just so many each day. And the other day, her dad gave her her plate of dinner, and she just looked at him and said, thank you. And the mom was saying, like, she would have never initiated conversation before. If we had said, what do you say? She may have said, thank you. But for her to have unprompted initiated verbal communication and connection with her family, it's so huge. And, I give a lot of power to the chiropractic adjustment because exactly like you said, Andrea, I think it is so connection based. I think that societally, a lot of people are still hung up on neck pain, back pain. And I think it's just so incredibly much more than that. I recognize that this is a family who are willing to do everything for their daughter. They're doing physio, and they're doing speech therapy, and they're changing her nutrition, and they're doing all the things. And I can't help but give a little extra credit to the chiropractic adjustment for a lot of these massive changes they're seeing. I think it's incredible when we bring more ease to the body, what the body is then capable of. So
that is so powerful. The first thought that came to me, Andrea, with this person you were interacting with is hearing the words you were sharing. I love that vision. I am all for us being able to self-regulate and thrive and not have to pay money for all these things. And as much as I'm like, let's get on board and like visualize and meditate on this vision, it's not what's happening in reality right now with these kids. It is not what we're seeing with autistic numbers skyrocketing, with chronic illnesses in young kids going up at an exponential rate. So there's also the reality of like, yes, I am with you, or I can be on board with you, with that being a possibility in life always. And there's a reason that these professions exist, because there is a major epidemic of diseases happening in younger generations, and I'm going to keep doing my job. So that's what comes forward with what the experience
and I've
you
said
had.
that before to people too, because they're like, well, how come I'm not all the way better yet? I've been coming for like a few months, and I just kind of felt like I'd come a few months, improve, and then I would never need you again. And I'm like, well, that would be awesome, like truly.
Yeah.
And I'm going, but we live in the real world, and we live in a highly imperfect world. So that's my reason as to why we continue to need support.
Absolutely. And another question I have, that curiosity, is when did we decide that the goal or the success in health is to not need other people? Because we were meant to be in community. When you look at any society up until recent times, you loved and honored the bread guy because he was good at making bread, and you showed up in what you knew you served the community with, and there was an exchange of energy. It may not have been money always, but in today's times, it is money that is giving that priority and that exchange, which is why it's money. But the idea of relying on community for their unique gifts is not new. And I think we can take the strong ownership of, I can do it myself, when I like to believe that that's not the ultimate goal. And we're finding possibly the opposite when it comes to health, is the more people try to be resilient on their own and they isolate themselves and they're not leaning and speaking to others, that it actually causes more illness in their body, because we're meant for that diverse community to engage with each other, co-regulation.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think we all have our own blind spots. You know what I mean? And where someone else can say like, I'm thinking of this. Have you thought of that? And you're like, oh my goodness, like it's so simple. How did I not think of that?
So good. Yeah.
You know, and it can make all the difference. And it doesn't have to come from a place of judgment or anything like that, but just like bouncing ideas off of each other, you know, kind of thing, and supporting each other. And I think that's like in any part of life, whether it be health or motherhood or whatever it is, it's like when we can actually support, like truly support without judgment and all of that, it's like there's so much magic that happens there.
Magic, that's the theme.
Mm-hmm.
Magic.
Yeah.
Well, to answer your question about a specific story that I can give, my mind instantly goes to this 8-year-old. And what I think is powerful and transformative about this story specifically is, I think as a chiropractor, we can become desensitized to the little miracles. You know, getting a newborn baby or a baby that's a couple weeks old who's not pooping or having digestive issues, and then they leave and they come back, they're like, oh my gosh, the baby had 3 blowouts. And it's like, of course we're celebrating, but I find myself, especially the more I'm serving the community, how like, I'm like, duh, like we pressed the poop button, the baby, you know, her brain and her body knew exactly what to do. That is completely my expectation. Being intentional as a provider to remind myself, like, that is game changing. If that baby did not reconnect, especially in these younger minds, the body just continues to layer and layer and layer into different maladaptive patterns in the future. Like, that is a changed life right there. And so the story that comes to me when I reflected on that is, I had an 8-year-old come in, and the reason she was coming in was for upset stomach. She was at the point where she was having to go home from school multiple times a week because her stomach was aching so badly, and they didn't know what was causing it. And since she was 5 years old specifically, they started changing her diet drastically. No gluten, supplements like crazy. I mean, they were going above and beyond to support her digestive system. And this little girl is like a happy, happy girl. And when it came to going to school, she would be able to vocalize. She just gets intense fear and anxiety around it, but she's got to go to school. So here she'd go to school. And then over time, the physical anxiousness and digestion would just continue to ramp up. And they had been battling this or going back and forth for the last 3 years. And I will never forget the day. This was about a month and a half in care, so definitely built consistency with her nervous system. she came in and she was so excited to tell me, so excited. She was looking at her mom like, can I tell her now? Can I tell her now? And she was like, I ate a cookie this weekend and I didn't have any issues. And I love cookies, which is why this story sticks out to me, because I'm like, yes, you ate some cookies. And her mom was just sitting in the corner with the biggest smile on her face, because they had gone through so much really positive lifestyle changes to support her body, right? Like, these are all great things that they were doing to allow for better health. But for her to go to a birthday party and enjoy a chocolate chip cookie and not have her entire stomach and digestive system begin to spiral in reaction to that was a huge win. And up until she even shared this story, we already saw her not having to go to school because of digestive issues, not having to go home and parents having to stop their schedule and go pick her up and take care of her throughout the day. You know, it wasn't just her life being changed, but now you see the parents also being able to not only feel confident that her body's healing, but not having to change their schedule last minute and alter things around. So it really was having the parents there and seeing these results. They began getting curious and they're like, okay, I have to know more. And that is when the whole family unit begins to get involved, because the nervous system, it addresses every single system in the body. You're not just pinpointing one thing. If you can really address how the body is processing these different stressors, you're going to see a change in the way these different systems function and allow her to better adapt.
Yeah, I love that. I think for me, I had this happen twice when I was in my Roswell, Georgia practice. And both were boys. One was definitely on the spectrum. The other one was probably, though it had not been diagnosed at the time. And both times their mom came back and was like, and this was something I didn't even know, it had never come up prior that this was an issue. And they came back and they're like, oh my goodness, like the only thing we did different was start chiropractic care. And for the first time, like my child has said, I love you, and expressed love, because he was never able to do that before, because he would say, I don't know what love is. I don't understand it. I can't feel that. Therefore, I can't tell you. So no, mom, sorry, I don't love you because I don't get it. And it was kind of like we're both in both of these cases, this little boy, it was at different points in time, but they were probably both around 6 or 7 when it happened. But like to go like 7 years where there was just no like sense of the child showing appreciation or love, and never verbalizing that and never understanding that, and really like not even being able to receive it when the parents really tried to, like, just that disconnect of like, I don't get it. And like both times the moms were crying and they were like, oh my goodness, like my child said that they loved me, and like they came of their own want and gave me a hug, and like they showed me love, and this has never happened before. And I'm going like, that is like, it's something you don't think about. Like I had never thought before this happening the first time that, like, I didn't even know that this was something that was going on for them in their home. You know what I mean? And but I'm going, wow, like, and it's just, I'm going, that's the kind of stuff you don't expect. And it was just mind blowing for me and for these families. They're like, this is just, I never thought that this would happen. And
what a beautiful gift, not just for the child receiving care, but for that family. Like,
yeah,
I was tearing up as you were sharing your story. There have been, like, my daughter is 22 months. There have only been a handful of times so far, and I get that it's because it's age appropriate, but there have been a handful of times that she's initiated the hug, or she's initiated the kiss. Go see her, please. And I can distinctly remember the first time that I said I love you, and she, in her broken speech, said love you too, and I started crying in the middle of a restaurant. And my partner had gone to the washroom. He came back and he's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, she said love you too. It was like, the way that it filled my heart is indescribable. And so what an incredible, incredible gift that we get to give experiences like that to other families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By not being attached to an outcome, by not having an expectation, but simply by knowing that that's the power and the possibility with the care that we provide, with working with the nervous system, with removing interference, with increasing connection. Please stop moving my tripod. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chiropractic is so unbelievable.
Yeah. And talking about the nervous system, like it's really interesting because I feel like in the recent years, maybe like if you look online or something, it's kind of like this helps with the nervous system, this regulates the nervous system, this does. Like, I feel like people get so, like, there's so much more information now about you can change your nervous system with this modality or with this one, or use this device, or do this technique or do that technique, or like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it gets very confusing for people because, and ultimately at the end of the day, anything that is a stimulation to us, whether internal or external, affects the nervous system.
Yeah.
Right? So everything affects the nervous system. And, you know, and then through this, I also feel like there's been all this talk of biohacking and stuff like that. And I feel like people start to get confused when, because as chiropractors, we talk about the nervous system. We talk about creating new connections. We talk about like creating new neural pathways in the brain. And so, but I'm curious, like from your perspective, what are the kind of the differences, and you know, what are your thoughts on people who are all about the biohacking and stuff like that? And just because I feel like it's really confusing.
Yeah. This is something I have been diving into for the last 2 years because on my way out of chiropractic school, I fell head over heels in love and connected with breathwork. And it is still such a deep part of my being, and I believe my service in the world. And so I was very confused. Here I was, a fresh student, and I'm like, well, breathwork, I have experienced such powerful healing and transformation. Like, what's the difference? You know? And so what I've concluded over the last, or the visual I like to give people to try to simplify what I believe the difference to be, and how chiropractic is such a potent and necessary part of nervous system healing, not just nervous system regulation, is this. If you can imagine yourself, do y'all enjoy taking bubble baths or baths when y'all have a time, or have
Only
enjoyed
when I
baths
was
at all?
pregnant. Otherwise, I don't do baths.
No.
But when I was pregnant, I was like, oh my goodness, get me in there.
Yes, I find that some people either love it or they're like, absolutely not. I'm not sitting in a tub of water for minutes at a time. But I love using a bathtub as a visual or an analogy of the difference, because if we were to go about our daily stressors, that could be emotional stressors throughout the day. It could be high mental load if we have a job that engages a lot of, sitting down at a computer, crunching numbers, socializing with people. It could be you name it. Everyone has their unique stressors in their day-to-day. And each time the stressor happens, we are filling up the tub with more and more water. And the beautiful thing is, as we learn these self-regulating tools, such as breath work, such as polyvagal stimulators, such as humming, such as dancing, such as vibration plates or singing bowls, whatever it is, movement, running, what you're doing is you're choosing to go into the drain and unplug the drain so that the water can go down for the day. Who would not want to utilize this? And then you start over tomorrow. What I find the difference is chiropractic plays a role by coming in and giving you a larger tub and a sturdier tub and upgrading the entire drainage system for that tub. So if you're someone who is prone to burnout or noise stimulation, like your nervous system easily gets overactive, then you can go and reach for those tools and drain your tub 4 times a day to get the water out. But over time, if you're heading in that direction, your tub is going to continue to overflow much easier and easier and easier. There's a completely restorative process that is needed for you to upgrade and have more capacity for the stressors that are in your life. So that is the difference. Is you, again, breathwork queen over here for 2 years out of school. I would be in the middle of an adjusting flow and I'm like, like peopling. And then I'd always have to have a room in the practice where I could be alone, turn the light off and breathe. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Okay, I can go back into the adjusting shift. But what I found is the bigger my life got, because I have big dreams. I've only touched on the impact in the dreams that I have. And I was beating myself up because I'm like, man, I'm doing this. And I find myself going into the shed, as I called it, and like having to breathe 4 times a day just to show up back to the table. And I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. I know my capacity and what I'm here to do is so like require so much more. What am I going to do? And that is when I started understanding I need to update and start getting chiropractic adjustments that much more, because my capacity to actually handle more needs to grow. And anytime I want, in any given moment, I can go and reach for those tools to help me self-regulate. So that's what I think is the difference, is upgrading your capacity for adapting to stress versus same capacity and constantly dumping out and resetting throughout the day or throughout the week, whatever it is for you that's unique for your nervous system.
I love that analogy with the bathtub.
me too.
That's such a great visual. And I think it's always neat to me how I think we can often think and believe the same things, but have different ways to explain them. And I think that's what happens sometimes when you hear something and you go like, wow, I've heard that said a million times, but this way stuck for me. I see all of the, I'm going to call them influencers on Instagram, and some are healthcare professionals and some are not. But biohacking is like, it seems to be the buzzword of the year. I feel like last year it was nervous system regulation. Not that one has gone away, but biohacking seems to be really in right now. When I hear the word hack, to me, a hack is like a shortcut or a cheat code, or I guess what I really feel like it is a way to avoid doing the work, a way to trick my system into performing optimally under its current set of standards, protocols, conditions, but without having to put in the work to get there. And maybe that's just me. Maybe the biohackers are like, we just need a different word for it. But I think that is the difference with, I'm going to use this one as an example, and I think I'm really against it, but I don't know for sure, and I'm not judging anyone who does it. But like, I'm not about to pour methylene blue on my tongue every morning so that I can increase functionality. I want to go get adjusted. I want to have the experience where maybe my emotions are bigger today. Maybe that has unleashed something. Maybe that has unwound something within my system. And I don't always have to know what it is. I don't have to be able to say like, oh, this is when I was 7 and fill in the blank, you name it. But I think that there is something to being willing to go there and being willing to do the work and being willing to be consistent and being willing to recognize that, yes, I need to eat good food for the rest of my life if I want to have certain outcomes. And yes, I should probably move my body in some way every single day if I want to have a certain set of outcomes. And for me, I also believe that I should probably be getting adjusted at some kind of regular frequency interval that likely is going to change based on what the needs of my system are, what the external stimuli of my environment are at various stages in my life. And I have noticed, I used to say it as a joke, like, wow, I'm in a really bad mood. I need to go get an attitude adjustment. But like, it's true. I just feel so much infinitely better. My body feels more grounded. I feel more able to receive those external stimuli, the noise, the chaos, the traffic, you name it. When my nervous system has been attended to. So, and maybe I'm biased. Maybe the therapists of the world would say the same thing for therapy. Probably they would. And truthfully, I'm not lumping therapy in with biohacking. I don't think they're even remotely the same thing. I think, like I said, I think hacks to me are like cheat codes for life. And I think that there's some beauty in finding ways to actually face and do the work and consciously effort for your life.
Yeah, and I think that's something what you're touching on. Like, I feel like there's like to honor the body and the message and to honor the emotion and to honor, like, I feel like whether it's kind of pop culture or whatever, or even a lot of certain spiritual work, they want to rush you through the process. Like, there's a certain rush of like, just get over it, just change your mindset, just stop thinking those thoughts. And I feel like oftentimes in the rush to get you to a better place, it skips the honoring of the experience. It skips, and it doesn't mean you necessarily have to sit so long in why is it like this and why did this come up and why did this happen. Like, you don't have to go down the big why path either. But I think that there's, in honoring the message and in honoring, like, hey, this is the thunderstorm that I'm in right now, and let me just sit with the rain for a little bit. Like, instead of rushing through it, like, let me sit with this a little bit, because it's not a bad thing. Like, even to have a thought that's not helpful isn't necessarily a bad thing. And we don't necessarily have to go down the big long path of why am I having this thought, and let me berate myself for having this thought, and let me like control my thoughts and like grip tighter, but rather to say, we had a little rain and now it's gone. Yes. I pulled out my umbrella and now I'm moving on. But I got to honor the experience that in that moment I was having a really bad moment, or I was feeling really irrational, or I was feeling really angry, or I was feeling really whatever, or my body was feeling that way. Or maybe it was because I was having all these emotions that I didn't find a way to express, that then my body was feeling that. But either way, I got to say, like, it's okay. I'm here with you. Like, and all parts of me are welcome. Yeah. And I feel like when you get to lay down on the table, like, you get to just be with all parts of you for a brief moment in time. And they're all welcome and they're all accepted. And you get to find what's really good in you and make that bigger. Yeah. No, and you know, like, there's not a lot of time in really anyone's life where you just get to really like sit with yourself and have someone like be there with you and help you process things quickly without having to necessarily think about it so much, but like help you process. Yeah. So you can move on, but in a very honoring way.
Yeah. That reminds me so much. I think newborns are great at this, because even going back to you talking about the rush, they say that trauma, specifically trauma stored in the body, it's because it's too much, too fast, too soon, whatever it may be. And so when we're healing and we're going back to these core places, we're revisiting experience that were already too fast and too much and too soon. So why would we rush the process again? Right. And I think newborns, and this was in a conversation with a beautiful craniosacral therapist, actually. We were really bonding off of how intelligent newborns are and how they don't have a voice to speak, that their movements and their usually their movement mostly is what's trying to tell the story of what they've been through. They are trying to relive this incredibly challenging birth, their first experience coming out of the womb and into life. And if you let them and you hold them with love and grace and you let them unwind their story to you, and you are there listening and supporting them and helping them with resources to do so, that's what they're needing. And I will never forget her sharing that. I was like, that's exactly what it is. I've never put words to that before, but it's so beautiful when you are essentially giving their bodies a place for them to share. And you are just observing it and helping them go back in time to relive that experience in a different way that now allows them to be realigned with their body instead of that experience being stored and locked into the nervous system and hopefully tapped into later in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Andrea, there was something you said about like the moment when you lay on the table where you have permission and allowance for all of your parts to be there. And I think it's so neat. Like sometimes I feel like I can just lay on the table and not even get adjusted, if you will. But just the act of laying on the table, I can feel that calmness, that wave come over my body of like, yeah, we're all here. We're all here. We're all safe. We're all welcome. Yeah, I think that the chiropractic adjustment is so incredibly beautiful. We were talking before about impacts we've had on the community or children where, those favorite moments. And I think it's also neat to think about there are a handful of adjustments that I've received in my life where I can actually pinpoint that adjustment was life-changing. Mm-hmm. And like that moment, the way that person saw me, the way that they held space for me. Interestingly, one that stands out the most at this point is from a very unlicensed, uneducated, unexperienced 2-year-old. She's been coming to the office with me since she was born, and that's one of the beautiful things about the space that we've created. But it's now become a thing where she will insist on us laying down on the floor, and she comes up behind us and bends our knees just like, when we do in our leg checks. But she has her whole process. She'll kind of walk along and poke here and there. She tells you to turn over. She makes you cross your arms. She kind of belly flops onto you. She holds your head. But the other day I laid down and just the spot that she chose to poke, to just bring awareness to, I was like, yeah, girl, like that's exactly where it's all being held right now. Thank you. I needed that gentle, loving touch in that moment. And it just was everything I needed to come back to my body to feel regulated. It was so wonderful. She's now having a meltdown. And so for the sake of, I know there are a few more questions.
No, I was thinking the same thing. This is a perfect place
jump
to
off.
close.
I'll let you guys finish the conversation. I can't wait to hear the rest of it. Haley, it was so wonderful talking to you. I feel like it looks like I'm in a tornado. We're getting kicked here. So I love you both, and I am so excited to hear the rest of this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Caitlin. Have a great day.
Thank you. Oh, that's funny. Oh, mom life is wild.
I know, so real though. It's so real.
So funny. But yeah, tell me, let me see. From your perspective, I'm just curious, what is like the most amazing thing about the human body? Like for you kind of right now. I think this one's always fun. I used to ask my patients this.
Yeah. That's such a great question. Oh my goodness. My favorite thing about the human body, I love, and it's been a while since I've tapped into it, but leaning into cycle syncing as women and as men, it just looks different. But leaning into cycle syncing in the multitude of ways that you can and how it is reflected in nature. It blows me away. And I think anytime you're feeling disconnected from your body or you're feeling dysregulated, whatever it may be, I just find it so beautiful and amazing that you can go connect to the earth and connect to nature in its rawest form and be reminded of what is actually natural in the human body. Because at this point in society, we've created all these standards of normal. When at the end of the day, no matter how fancy we get with technology, no matter how many techniques we create out there, how many biohacking tools that exist, at the end of the day, you can go sit next to a tree and observe the animals in nature and watch how there's 4 different seasons, and there always has been 4 different seasons, and that we are a part of nature, and we're meant to go through all of those seasons. So if you're feeling bad because you're going through a time of grief and it's heavy and it's dark and it feels like all these parts of you are literally dying, and the only thing you're getting reflected back to you in life, or in society, I should say, is that that's wrong. How quickly can you move through it? Think positively about it, what's good in it, versus being like, well, nature goes through an entire season of death and it never stays there. It goes through its process. The season lasts as long as the season lasts, and there's resources and support in the process. But flowers
and
are
even in the decay, so to speak, that creates the goodness in the soil.
Yeah.
And like composting is all about, death and rebirth, right? And it creates this very, very rich, whatever it is, even like a volcano, right? Which is this like violent eruption and burns down everything in its path. And I don't know, for me, motherhood sometimes feels like I'm a volcano, like stay out of my way because the lava's about to come. And more so like in that I feel like the world is not very supportive of mothers and of birth and of honoring things. And I'm like, ooh, there's rage now. And not all the time, mostly I'm doing good. But and someone had said once, they're like, that's sacred rage. Like it's like over things that are wrong, over something that shouldn't be that way. Like over being blamed or shamed or whatever it is. But even the volcano, this is my point, let me circle back. Even though it burns up all kinds of stuff in its path, and that, like, for people who've been to, let's say, like the Big Island in Hawaii or whatever, like you can walk on that volcano, like that, the hardened lava, right? Like it'll be there for forever. But out of that fog, right, of the ash that comes down when a volcano erupts, it brings such depth of nourishment to the soil. And so the area, like there's part of the Big Island which gets really inundated when the volcano goes off. And but it lends itself to the most highly nutritious and the most delicious and the most amazing plant life and fruit that is just like you just can't get that kind of nourishment elsewhere. And it's part of this volcano that, while yes, it's very destructive, also leaves behind something so potent for regrowth.
Absolutely. And the word depth stands out to me the most. And I relate to this rebirthing. And again, even though I'm seeing it and appreciating it more in the physical body, I relate to it the most in the emotional body, where going through my own mental emotional journey, I so deeply would work with professionals, whether it was a spiritual coach or a therapist. And I was like, how quickly can I move through this? Going back to the speed thing versus slowing down and learning now that grief specifically is what I like to connect with. It can be so heavy and so deep, 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 deep. And it is a well of water that you get to connect to that allows for the nourishment, like you're saying, for joy, for love, for all of these connections that I think the human soul craves and will do anything for. Will create scenarios or put themselves in certain situations that don't serve them out of trying to receive that love and connection or joy, whatever it may be, pleasure, it could be any of it, that we tend to deem as these higher, more enjoyable experiences. But if you actually lean into the depth and the harder, very real human emotions, that is what allows you to feel the degree of joy and play. And understanding, or it was hard for me to understand, but experiencing the reality that the two go together changed everything for me. Then I was just like, okay, I may not want to be here right now. I am excited to get through it, but I understand, like Caitlin was saying, the necessary steps of leaning in and staying a part of the process and staying present with the process as much as it needs. As much as it needs.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like even the idea of forgiveness, I think there's this assumption that it happens once and you're done. But I'm going like, again, but with all of like these big emotions, it's this continuous process of let me, whatever it is, let me again and again and again. And like be with it and say like it's okay to feel this, it's okay to have had this experience, and now I get to work with this again. And I'm going, some of these big emotions and big traumas, for lack of a better word or whatever, I mean, they could take a decade to fully process. And it doesn't mean you're in like insane grief the whole time, it doesn't mean that you're in insane anger or whatever it is the whole time. But I think that there's been culturally a not allowing of big emotions, and we'll see it even with young children with tantrums. It's like, you're bad, no tantrums, and then they get punished for having a tantrum, but they're just having a really big emotion that they don't know how to manage in their little being. And I feel like as adults we have these big emotions and our own little versions of tantrums.
Yep.
And all of that, where we just don't know how to deal with what's happening right there. And then to be forced then to rush through that, it's like, it doesn't mean we have to live in a tantrum all the time. You know what I mean? Like, but we still get these surges of whatever, and we get to connect with them and honor them and allow the process. Like, what can I process of that today? Maybe it's just a few drops.
Yeah.
You know, or maybe it's, you know, a little bit more, or maybe we get support and we can move through it faster, or however it looks. But it doesn't like there's this ebb and flow of process. So maybe it takes us for massive things, maybe it does take years to truly go, wow, I'm actually neutral about this now. Like,
And
I'm actually over this, like I've moved through it.
And can we be okay with that? I think that's a part of the process for a lot of people is, are we okay with it taking a longer amount of time than maybe we desire? And is it worth it? Because there's a lot of people out there who's like,
Yeah.
Nope, it's not worth it to me. If I know how to numb and I know how to go through and do whatever it is, like there's a lot of people who choose not to go into the healing process, and that's okay. There might be a day they change their mind.
You know, and sometimes you might be forced to, and I'll tell you, motherhood has a way of forcing the issue on certain things, and you're like, dang it, I have to look at this now.
That's so good. You are ready. You are ready. Well, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who a lot of people didn't know was a chiropractor, and I love sharing that, but Dr. Joe Dispenza, I think, lays it out so simply. I just love the words he's able to put into transformation. And he says that the bigger the emotion in any given experience that was too much and was stored, the longer you have to put in intentionality and choose to keep showing up to do the work. Like there is an acknowledgement that it will take more effort because it was such a big experience. And he sees that as that is a reality, is it will, yes, take a little bit more work, but what you get on the other side and what's possible is going to be worth it. If you decide it is, you have to decide it's worth it. And so creating that vision, he is so big on like visualizing the future over getting stuck in the past, not as a way of dismissing the past, but if you have something to look forward to, it makes it easier for you to go into the past and be able to process things over time, knowing that vision is coming in your future. Without that vision of the future, it's easy to go into the past and stay stuck in the past, whether we're conscious of it or not. And those words, I listen to him speak that multiple times a week, because it's just so easy to get stuck in what we've only, especially the older we get in age, it is so easy just to tap into what you know of yourself, your identities and your habits you've created. It's becomes more standard of living, and it takes that much more reminding of what is possible. If you're desiring more connection and expression in your life, it will require a little bit more work.
Yeah. And I think that that's really, really important, just super important. And even there's there's an idea, it's kind of out of positive psychology, but of a justice gap, like where sometimes to move past something feels really hard because it doesn't feel like there's been justice. It feels like the injustice was so great and there's no, just based on how things happen. And something I think of would be birth trauma, as an example. So someone that I know, she ended up losing her uterus. And there was no justice for her. She tried suing because it shouldn't have happened. And I don't know all the details, but she felt like there was no justice at the end of it. And when you come against big hospitals, like there just isn't typically justice. And there can be a lot of abuse. And not in every case, but there can be. The power differential is just, in the society we live in, it's so huge that it can be very hard to and so there was this big justice gap. But but exactly like what you're saying, if you focus on the future and say, this is what I want, this is my reward, I can move through this, not because I need to have revenge or whatever, because I probably won't get that. And that maybe isn't actually what I want, but this goodness, this life that is so juicy, that is so good, that is so aligned, that I'm so truly, truly happy in, that is my reward. That's my justice. And I feel like to focus on that, it helps close the gaps.
Yeah. And imagine
between things.
Living in that space of possibility and that vision forward. You're so much more resourced because you're not holding on to the resentment or anger. Again, all useful tools, and it's part of the process of getting you to the vision. But even just visualizing and being in that place already, your nervous system is so much more resourceful to even create any change against the big system.
Yeah.
So there's so many layers to that, but having the resourcefulness to initiate something so big in the world we live in, it requires the right tools. And if you're empty because you're heavy all the time and resentful, it's only adding more venom in your system when the bite has already happened.
Yeah. Ultimately, to change anything, we have to change ourselves first.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a very beautiful, messy, wonderful, challenging, exciting process that we kind of all live in all the time in our own ways.
Yep.
But I love that. That actually seems like a very good place to close for today. But oh my goodness, thank you so much. This was so brilliant. And you always bring so much wisdom and so much thoughtfulness and intention. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Andrea. It was such a gift to get to be in a space with y'all in the Hen House, the Hen Den. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
And getting to just chit chat with a bunch of ladies and see what comes through and share and connect in a connected space. So gratitude right back to you, Andrea.
Yes. And I will make sure that I share all of the information that you want shared in the show notes so people can connect with you. And especially if people are in your part of Colorado, definitely check out Haley's new office that will be open in just a few weeks. And that's very exciting. And thank you to all of our wonderful, beautiful listeners. We're so grateful that you are here. So thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you are loving this podcast, please go ahead and subscribe and leave us a review. Both of these really help the show. As you go out into the world this week, know that we are sending you so much love and wishing you a wonderful and beautiful day, and we will see you back here soon.